75. Science.
The magician is still in the middle of his song, and he got to a point where he entered a tragic mood, starting to reminisce about the time when he looked, in vain, for truths that are beyond nature. At this point, however, one of the listeners has had enough.
Thus sang the magician, and all who were present went like birds unawares into the net of his artful and melancholy voluptuousness. Only the spiritually conscientious one had not been caught. He at once snatched the harp from the magician and called out, "Air! Let in good air! Let in Zarathustra! Thou makest this cave sultry and poisonous, thou bad old magician!"
Everyone in the cave is hooked. Tragedy has always been perceived as the highest form of art, higher than comedy. Tragedy focuses on people who try to achieve something monumental, but fail. In the mid-19th century, as the modern dream of creating a utopian society started to collapse, the mood turned pessimistic, and the tragedies captured this mood, providing some catharsis. None more so than Richard Wagner's tragic operas, the same Wagner who inspired the character of the magician. Young Nietzsche was an avid fan of his operas, but then began to see them as a manifestation of the decay of the Western spirit. He claimed that we are stuck in the age of tragedy, and instead we need to bring about the age of comedy, in which we don't try to impose perfection on nature, but learn to live joyfully in it. This is what Zarathustra preached, telling his guests to learn how to laugh and not take life too seriously. But once he stepped out, the magician took his words and twisted them, to put everyone back in a tragic mood. Zarathustra isn't there to stop him, but the man who calls himself the spiritually conscientious one, the one who wants to live a purely rational life, is not into tragedy, and he breaks the spell that the magician put on them.
Thou seducest, thou false one, thou subtle one, to unknown desires and deserts, and alas, that such as thou should talk and make ado about the truth. Alas, to all free spirits who are not on their guard against such magicians, it is all over with their freedom. Thou teachest and temptest back into prisons. Thou old melancholy devil, out of thy lament soundeth allurement. Thou resemblest those who with their praise of chastity secretly invite to voluptuousness.
He blames the magician that he pretends to pursue truth, but actually, what he is into is the tragic feeling of wanting something you cannot have. There is power in this feeling, and it moves the human spirit. So he places truth where it cannot be attained, and then provides tragic art that captivates people and wins him glory. But his art does not liberate people. It dooms them to a tragic life of being slaves to the idea that truth is out there in the metaphysical realm, instead of realizing the truth can be found in this world.
Thus spake the conscientious one. The old magician, however, looked about him, enjoying his triumph, and on that account put up with the annoyance which the conscientious one caused him. "Be still," said he with modest voice. "Good songs want to re-echo well. After good songs one should be long silent." Thus do all those present, the higher men. Thou, however, hast perhaps understood but little of my song. In thee there is little of the magic spirit.
The magician, we know, has a huge ego, and he is annoyed that someone dared to speak this way to him. But, seeing that everyone else fell for his magic, he gets over it, and accuses his critic for simply being unable to understand art, understand magic.
"Thou praisest me," replied the conscientious one, "in that thou separatest me from thyself. Very well. But ye others, what do I see? Ye still sit there, all of you, with lusting eyes. Ye free spirits, whither hath your freedom gone? Ye almost seem to me to resemble those who have long looked at bad girls dancing naked. Your souls themselves dance. In you, ye higher men, there must be more of that which the magician calleth his evil spirit of magic and deceit. We must indeed be different."
The spiritually conscientious one isn't insulted by the accusation, but regards it as a compliment. But he is disappointed in the others, those who came to Zarathustra because they want to be free. He accuses them that they, too, are possessed by what the magician called the evil spirit, and thus choose to be hooked by the thought of being thrown once again into a state of nihilism, wanting truth but unable to attain it. As I surmised, it is probably more due to them being brought up to appreciate tragic art.
And verily we spake and thought long enough together ere Zarathustra came home to his cave, for me not to be unaware that we are different. We seek different things, even here aloft, ye and I, for I seek more security. On that account have I come to Zarathustra, for he is still the most steadfast tower and will. Today, when everything tottereth, when all the earth quaketh.
Remember, this is the man who ran away from society and dedicated his life to the study of the leech. He did so because to him, freedom means living by something that you truly know, not taught by others. So he reduced his world to be very small and confined, but a world in which everything is familiar to him. He feels secure in such a world, and he came to Zarathustra because he sees him as someone who can provide such security on a grander scale. With all the values falling apart, Zarathustra's worldview is the only one still standing firm, so the spiritually conscientious one rotated towards him.
Ye, however, when I see what eyes ye make, it almost seemeth to me that ye seek more insecurity, more horror, more danger, more earthquake. Ye long, it almost seemeth so to me, forgive my presumption, ye higher men. Ye long for the worst and dangerousest life, which frighteneth me most, for the life of wild beasts, for forests, caves, steep mountains, and labyrinthine gorges. And it is not those who lead out of danger that please you best, but those who lead you away from all paths, the misleaders. But if such longing in you be actual, it seemeth to me nevertheless to be impossible.
Zarathustra's worldview may be firm, but it was not formed by lying around all day and looking at leeches. It was formed through a life of wandering, danger, and adventure, putting himself through spiritual trials. The spiritually conscientious one thinks that this is the redundant part, that this may have been necessary to form the worldview, but now that the worldview exists, we can live within it like in a secure castle, or like Zarathustra in his cave. Actually, Zarathustra's worldview compels you to go out on your own adventures, forging your spirit. Anyway, he accuses them that they came to Zarathustra not because they want to understand his philosophy, but because they want him to take them, too, on a life of danger and adventure. But he says that even if they want such a life, they will not be able to actually live it.
For fear, that is man's original and fundamental feeling. Through fear, everything is explained, original sin and original virtue. Through fear, there grew also my virtue, that is to say, science. For fear of wild animals, that hath been longest fostered in man, inclusive of the animal which he concealeth and feareth in himself. Zarathustra calleth it the beast inside. Such prolonged ancient fear at last become subtle, spiritual, and intellectual. At present, methinketh, it is called science.
They will not be able to achieve it, because they are still ruled by man's most fundamental feeling, fear. Unique individuals, like Zarathustra, may be strong enough to overcome the fear, but they are not strong enough. Man started out as a wild animal, and there is still much of this wild animal in him, what Zarathustra, in the Sublime Ones, called the unconquered beast, and the speaker here misquotes as the beast inside. The beast inside, he says, is what pushes them to want to live a life of adventure. But the fear in man's heart is stronger than the beast inside, and pushed him to create ways to tame it. This brought the rise of science, by which man learns to control nature, control the beast inside. This is, indeed, how Nietzsche viewed science. He claimed that science comes out of wanting to close oneself in a secure world. The spiritually conscientious one, with his pathetic life of lying in the marsh all day and observing leeches, is a metaphor for a scientist, one who closes himself in a lab, creates an experiment in which there are just a few variables, and finds the rules of that closed system. Scientists believe that in that, they find the rules of nature, rules that also apply to systems that have many more variables. But Nietzsche argued that nature is vast and chaotic, and such rules apply only to simple, controlled environments. He accused science of trying to shut out most of nature, and confine man to a small area where everything can be known and controlled. This man who studies leeches is an image that is meant to take it to a ridiculous extreme, to show how small the world of science is, how it turns man into a being no bigger than a leech. His alternative was what he called gay science, in which you go out into the chaos, put yourself through it, and learn how to mold it into a lifestyle that makes you happy. This is what Zarathustra is about, and this leech man, this scientist, fails to understand it.
Thus spake the conscientious one. But Zarathustra, who had just come back into his cave, and had heard and divined the last discourse, threw a handful of roses to the conscientious one, and laughed on account of his truths. "Why," he exclaimed, "what did I hear just now? Verily it seemeth to me thou art a fool, or else I myself am one, and quietly and quickly will I put thy truth upside down. For fear is an exception with us. Courage, however, and adventure, and delight in the uncertain, in the unattempted, courage seemeth to me the entire primitive history of man."
Zarathustra comes back into the cave and catches the last exchange. He laughs at the spiritually conscientious one. The main feeling driving man, he says, is not fear, but courage. Humans, indeed, started as wild beasts, and courage was the thing that drove them. Man may have changed since those days, but his most basic impulses did not. We are still driven mainly by courage.
The wildest and most courageous animals hath he envied and robbed of all their virtues. Thus only did he become man. This courage at last becomes subtle, spiritual, and intellectual, this human courage, with eagle's pinions and serpent's wisdom. This, it seemeth to me, is called at present Zarathustra! Cried all of them there assembled, as if with one voice, and burst out at the same time into a great laughter. There arose, however, from them, as it were, a heavy cloud.
This courage, our primary impulse, is the thing that should direct us, the thing we should construct ourselves around. When he searches for a word to describe the ideal of such a construct, everyone attended unanimously agree that it is Zarathustra. And this puts them in a jovial mood, finally driving away the tragic atmosphere that the magician created.
Even the magician laughed, and said wisely, "Well, it is gone, mine evil spirit. And did I not myself warn you against it when I said that it was a deceiver, a lying and deceiving spirit? Especially when it showeth itself naked. But what can I do with regard to its tricks? Have I created it and the world?"
The magician realizes that he was defeated, and the mood he tried to create was vanquished. A master of trickery, he simply blames it on the evil spirit, and says that it is now gone, and he is on board with a new mood.
"Well, let us be good again and of good cheer. And although Zarathustra looketh with evil eye, just see him, he disliketh me. Ere night cometh, will he again learn to love and laud me. He cannot live long without committing such follies. He loveth his enemies. This art knoweth he better than any one I have seen, but he taketh revenge for it on his friends."
The magician knows that Zarathustra is angry with him for what he did, but reminds him that he preaches that we should love our enemies, since good rivals help us become stronger. Thus, he tries to get back into his good graces.
Thus spake the old magician, and the higher men applauded him, so that Zarathustra went round, and mischievously and lovingly shook hands with his friends, like one who hath to make amends and apologize to everyone for something. When, however, he had thereby come to the door of his cave, lo, then had he again a longing for the good air outside, and for his animals, and wished to steal out.
Zarathustra seems to be amused by their behavior, so he plays along. but he is also still disgusted by them, so he wants to escape their presence and go back outside once again.